This morning, we have had requests for perspective to be shared by PIs. For faculty that have grants, that conduct research and have teaching loads, one of the questions is, how do you do the ELab or ABCT program at the same time? And what are some of the techniques and approaches that PIs who have taken the program have used when they are considering applying and when they have started in and are taking the program? So we asked one of our recent alumni of the ABCT program, Dr. Barry Kosofsky, to join us this morning to share his perspective about participating in the ABCT program. Dr. Barry Kosofsky is the chief of the pediatric neurology clinic at Weill Cornell. He has an extremely busy calendar, and he participated in the program this past year. So he has a current perspective of what it means to be a faculty clinician who is also participating in the ABCT program and launching a brand new business. We are very happy to have him take a break from his clinical responsibilities to join us today to share his perspective. We know this is an important question for people who are considering applying, and we're very happy to have him spend some time sharing his perspective of what it was like to consider applying to the program, what it was like to actually go through it, and what the result has been for him and his business. We welcome Barry to return and share a little bit about his experience with you this morning. Barry, I'd like to turn it over to you to share some of your thoughts on this program, and we welcome you here this morning. Let's see if we have some sound here for this with Barry.
There it is. Okay, am I
Good
back?
Morning. Yes, you're back. Good morning, Barry.
Good morning. Got my webcam on? Maybe.
We still have. Do you have the webcam going?
Looks like I do.
We'll change the screen so we have the webcam on you, and move it over so people can have a picture of you while you're sharing your story with us.
All right, because I didn't prepare any slides, so I'm going to just address a couple of points that Mary and Isabel asked me to talk about, which is the technology that I worked on when I was at ABCT, what I got out of that program, and how I manage my time, because this is a big time commitment, and I don't know who's listening, whether you're coming at it from the business side or you're coming at it from the academic side, but it was eye-opening for me just how complicated and multifaceted starting a company is. And what I got out of the 3 months of ABCT is tremendous, but the time commitment was tremendous. And the key take home for me after 3 months is that I finally had an understanding of what I didn't know. And I didn't even know what I didn't know. And if you're going to run a company or start a business, you got to know what you don't know. And then that helps you identify who you need to engage to teach you and to help you with the things you don't know. And you can't miss any of these things, meaning you can't fail, And to avoid failing, you've got to have a sense of all the things that are potentially going to be on your to-do list, and who is going to help you do them. So it's two parts, I think, to the curriculum. Mary and her team introduce you to the people that can help you identify what it is that you need to do in multiple domains, and who it is that you need to talk to and potentially partner with in order to get that done. So let me put a little more meat on the bones. There's a formal curriculum that is part of ABCT, which involves 6 full days of boot camp, where you meet the other members of the teams who are in your cycle. We had 11 groups that were starting with us. And some of the people, what's very interesting is there's a tremendous range of experience in the room. Some of the people have been at it with a couple of prior companies. Some of them have been with their company for 4, 5, 6 years. I was just coming into it. I had started my company 2 months earlier, and my company is just 3 people, me and my son and another partner in Australia. And none of us had any prior entrepreneurship experience. So we were as green could be. So, I tell my friends and family that this is the steepest learning curve I've ever had, much steeper than medical school or internship. At least as an intern, I had gone to medical school and I knew the kinds of things I was going to need to master to be a doctor. Nobody tells you what you need to master to be an entrepreneur or a founder or to start a company. And I think that's the real value of the 3 months of the program. In the 6 full days of boot camp, Monday, Tuesday, for 3 consecutive weeks, which where we met in New Haven, there's a couple of things going on. You're meeting the other people around the room. So there's 11 startups. Most of them had at least 2 people at the table. I was one of the only groups that only had 1. I think that's to disadvantage. It's good to have a partner with you, not only in the company, but in the program. So you can bounce ideas off each other and present the different aspects of it. I guess there's 2 big pieces to this. One is what's the idea and the product, and the other is what's the idea and the company. And what I learned is there's really these are 2 very different things. It's pretty easy to start a company, and it's pretty easy to develop and patent a device. It is really hard to make money. And the making money part is, now that you've got this idea and this device or this drug or this test, what's the go-to market strategy? And those words weren't even in my vocabulary. And over the course of those 6 days, Mary introduced a curriculum, which is very choreographed. It's 16 modules, and it teaches you, it's geared around developing your pitch deck. So the pitch deck is essential for you to identify what is your company, what is your product, and how are you going to bring it to market. And there are a couple of key slides which the industry knows and wants you to present. How are you going to, what's the early adoption curve? How are you going to get over the chasm? I didn't have any idea what an adoption curve was or what a chasm was, but by sitting in that room and hearing Mary and others talk about who are the early adopters, how do you get people to embrace your technology, how are you then going to penetrate the market, what is the market you're going to penetrate, how are you going to sell your product, what is the price point, what is the strategy, is it a software company, is it a hardware company, do you want to market to the masses directly, or are there going to be a few early adopters that are going to then validate your product and get influencers to get people to see the value added? And it's different for each product. If you have a device Then is it an app? You don't need to get manufacture it. People like software better than hardware. People like therapeutics better than diagnostics. And you learn all these things along the course of these, sort of the broad brushstrokes over these 6 days, full days, very intense. Mary walks through each of the modules, but then you circle back and week by week go through each of those modules as a team. There's of the 11 people, we broke up into 3 groups. Each of was run by a mentor who had each of the 3 or 4 groups week by week go through each of the modules, present their company and how they can generate the slides required for that module to be part of the pitch deck. And that starts at the beginning. What is your core technology? What is your key deliverable? Who is your potential market? How are you going to get the people to adopt your product? And what is your message? And all of those things you've got to think about, and we would break up into small groups and work on easels and come up with drafts of each of these slides. And it was a learning experience because you learn as much from the people around the table as you do from the people that Mary brings to present to you, who are an impressive group of leaders from the industry. It included people that have invested in companies, people who have started companies. And I guess that's the other point, that I'm used to medicine, which is a team sport. It turns out that entrepreneurship is a team sport. And what's really good, like with medicine, is people want to help you succeed. And everybody's in it together. And there are so many different domains of expertise that you need to hear from and understand how they think and what motivates them. And until you get somebody in the room who's a venture capitalist and hear from them, what are they looking for? What are they interested in? And what I never knew about investing is it's very nuanced. When you go to raise money, you have had to have thought about every question and have an answer. You need to justify that answer. You may be right, you may not be right, but you give them your best response, let them know you thought about the question, and see if they agree with your answer or they have a better answer. And if they have a better answer, you incorporate that the next time you give your pitch. And it's just the successive approximations, presenting to as many people as often as possible, being very efficient. They don't want to have long-winded talks. They want you to cut to the chase. They want to know the facts. The pitch deck is the least common denominator that's letting them know, here's how you're positioning yourself and your company and your ideas, and then they can use that as a starting point to challenge. And it's a very efficient, very no aerodynamic drag. Don't tell them every great idea you ever had. Don't tell them how great you are, but convince them about you, your team, and your product, and how to do that in a set slide deck as efficiently as possible is really what we mastered over those 3 months. That less is more, that communicating by slides and by speech in a precise and efficient way. These people are so busy. When you've got their attention, you've got to make a pitch. You got your 30-second elevator pitch, you got your 3-minute pitch, you got your 5-minute pitch, and you have to say the essentials and convince them you are the right person with the right idea, doing the right thing at the right time in the right way. And what I would say is that after we break into these little groups, so it's 6 days in the room for 8 hours with each other, going through the curriculum with Mary, bringing in different experts. Then we break off into these working groups. We'd get homework every week. You'd have to present. We'd have a webinar for 3 hours where each of the 4 groups presented for 30 to 45 minutes. You had to do your homework, which is to create your slides for that module and any supporting material. You present that to the other groups. You defend that for the other groups. At the end of it, you'd have refine your slides. You're integrating each of those modules as you're updating your slide deck. And the goal is at the end of the 12 weeks, you have created a pitch deck that you're ready to present in public. And the culmination of the program at the end of the 3 months is we went to a Microsoft incubator. Mary got a bunch of VC people to come, and each of the 11 groups had a chance to present their slide deck in 10 minutes, their pitch deck, and answer some questions. And that's sort of the end of the beginning. You finish the program. Mary has helped to introduce you to various experts. You've put your vision together, and now you have a slide deck that you can distribute. You have an executive summary you can distribute. You have a marketing plan that you could distribute. And those are the deliverables that are the starting point for then assembling your team. So I should mention, as an academic, I came at it from the other side. Usually it's a business person that's looking for key opinion leaders to help them validate their product or device or test. I came at it from the academic side. I had the idea, I am the key opinion leader, but I don't have anybody in terms of marketing or business or helping me with the corporate side of my company. So what I learned is that the investors look at the team more than they do the product. And the reason is, if you have a good team that has proven themselves multiple times, they will find a way to reinvent the product to succeed, as opposed to somebody like me who thinks they have a good idea and a good product, but has never proven themselves in making money or monetizing that idea and developing a go-to-market strategy. And it turns out these two things are equally important. I'd like to think that the idea and the science is necessary, but it's clearly not sufficient. And what I've been learning is, how do you bootstrap a company? How do you, with limited resources, prioritize your investments, reach out to develop strategic partnerships with the right people at the right time as you're going from an idea to a company? And the way I did it is by contracting. I can't afford any salaries. So I found a key group of people who are working for equity. You don't want to give away too much equity. So I then assembled some contractors. The idea is, some people you're going to need for the long haul, and some people you just need for part of your R&D phase. That when you're bringing a company online, I need somebody to help me with regulatory, but hopefully once I get my FDA approval, I don't need regulatory anymore. So that's the kind of person you don't want to give equity to, but that you want to engage as a contractor to help you with your developing that component of your company and your project. So it's thinking about this in a linear way. Who are the people? What are the pieces? What do I need to accomplish? What's the order? And then you're going to have to create, make a pitch of that and say, I have an idea. Here's where I'm going. Here's how long and how much money it's going to take for me to get there. I'm breaking it down into individual components. Here's how much I'm going to anticipate spending this quarter in these domains. And at the end of the quarter, here's the deliverable that's going to then enable me to move my company and product forward. So I think it's probably the hardest thing I ever did. It's, as a result, probably the most fun I've ever had. I was 10 or 20 years older than anyone in the room. I was one of two active academics, although I think 6 or 7 of the groups had some academic credibility in their past in terms of being faculty at institutions. one from Yale, one from NYU, one from UConn. And I think it was this mix of people that were coming at it from the business side, who educated the academics, and some of the academics who were inspired about the science and then shared that, and some of our contacts with the business people. And you create a community, and this little community that becomes your group is one that you then expand on by bringing other people into it, some through the program. You talk to as many people as you can, go to as many of the, there are some roundtables where Mary would bring experts from the field. We had a few of those that were with VC people. We had some with angels. We had some with insurance companies and representatives, some biotechnology companies. And what you learn is they need us much more than we need them, because they want people to have good ideas. They're hungry for new products, new techniques, new tests. But you've got to understand what are the terms of engagement by which somebody's going to invest in you. It's a big responsibility once you start taking people's money, and you've got to deliver. And to do that, you've got to be accountable, and you've got to be fiscally responsible. There's a fiduciary responsibility. There's a corporate and legal responsibility. And then if you're doing a clinical product, there's the IRB and FDA responsibilities. So there's a lot to it. And what I would say is that you've got to be willing to give 110%. And I have a couple of day jobs, and this was another day job. This was a big commitment. I would say minimum 10 hours a week, and some weeks a lot more. And now I'm spending at least 10 hours a week, following finishing the program. And it is a major time commitment. It's has to be a high priority, and it's something that you integrate into your normal day, because I think very few people around that room were doing it full time, and everybody was trying to bootstrap their companies. And this issue of what's the best use of my time? What do I do? What do I contract other people to do? What do I get advisors? Who are my partners? Who are my consultants? Who are my advisors? Who are my contractors? This is key. And it all builds, and it has to be managed. The way we've been doing it is video conferences. What I do is I dedicate one day a week to the company. Fridays, today, is my B2D2 day. And by doing that, I clear out my schedule for my academics, for my clinical, and I could really focus. And for instance, today I got off, we have a weekly standing TCon with all the members of my team from 8 to 9 every Friday morning. I'm doing this from 9 to 10. At 10:30 to 11:30, I have a standing TCon now with my regulatory team, my design manufacturing team. And then at 2 o'clock today, I have a TCon with my internal team about developing a marketing plan so we can start to, we can finalize our term sheet, our business summary for distribution to try to start soliciting money. And I have a consultant coming on that call. So it's just getting everybody lined up by knowing that Fridays are my days. And by having this hour, I'm going to put all the people working on this aspect of the project on one call. It helps me compartmentalize the process, and helps me protect my company time on Fridays. I'm still doing some of the business stuff between Monday to Thursday, but not in any scheduled way. I try to just do it on Fridays. And for now, having 4 or 5 TCons on a Friday, some of them are, depends on if we're talking to England, it's earlier in the day because it's late there. If we're talking to California, they're on the phone at 2 o'clock my time, it's 11 o'clock their time. And it's choreographing this, and it's a big effort to provide this structure, to bring everybody to the table to advance your agenda, but you have to be disciplined about it. And for me, blocking out 1 day a week, I think has been very helpful for me to clear my head on Fridays. It's B2D2 day. And then each hour, there's a different group of people I'm going to try to get on the phone to help advance our agenda. You got to keep minutes. You have to get a file server so everybody can share folders, put documents in, documents out, get your video conferencing capabilities, which always mess up at the buzzer, but whether it's GoToMeeting like we're using now, or Zoom like I tend to use, whatever it is you're using for protected files where everybody can see, you have access. I mean, these are essentials. It seems so simple, but communicating and archiving data and documents so that you all have access to best and final, keeping track of these things with the current dates, being able to access information from previous meetings. This is absolutely essential. It seems tedious. It is tedious, but it's critically important. So I'd say in summary, I'll stop in a minute or two and field any questions. I didn't talk about my technology. I can do that. I've sort of tried to take a more 20,000 foot view of, what did I bring to the table? What did I get from being in that room? How did it empower me and educate me and motivate me to what I'm doing now? How am I trying to pull it off? And this is the work in progress, whether B2D2 succeeds or not. I think maybe I'm down to 1 in 5 chance of succeeding from 1 in 20 or 1 in 50. And that's challenging, and it's unsettling, but you've got to have that will, that fire in your belly. This is the most important thing that I can do. If I don't do it, nobody else can do it, and it has to be done. And then the issue is, well, how do I get it done, and who's going to help me do it? And that's what we work on week to week. But as a leader, you've got to inspire the people around you. You got to work harder than they do. You got to be the first one in and the last one out. And you've got to do that to sustain the energy. I mean, if you look at some of these books that Mary gives us to read, I've been reading Peter Thiel, and I've been reading Smart Ups, and there's Do More Faster, and there's lots of people who have done it, and you have to. And what keeps coming through is it's the team, it's the culture, that you've got to be so connected with your peers, and you trust them, and they trust you, and you assemble the team piece by piece, and everybody's has the same passion and enthusiasm and intensity that you do to succeed and believe in the product and the concept. And if you have that, it's satisfying and it's fun, and everybody enjoys it because you're doing something important and you're doing something different. And but you've got to be disciplined about it, and you've got to understand what the deliverables are. And it's very choreographed. It's real clear what the investors want, and it's real clear what it is that you need to say and what it is that you don't want to say in trying to convince them to invest in you and your idea to help you succeed. I'll stop there, and Mary, ask if there's anything you want me to further develop, or Brian or Isabel. And if there are any questions from anybody listening, I'll be happy to field those.
Barry, thank you so much for sharing your experience, both with the ABCT program, with your own startup, and also with the work and how you've structured your activity with B2D2. I think it's invaluable, the insight that you've shared here about the challenges and how you can structure your time and, as you say, compartmentalize the different aspects of clinical research and now company building. Very, very important. And you've come up with really, what seems like a simple solution, but it's very important to come up with something that is doable. And you've laid it out for people to understand how that's possible. did you, I just want to ask a question while we're waiting for some questions to come on in. In anticipation of participating in the program, had you made any adjustments to your clinical schedule or your research or grant writing schedule or conference going attendance? How did you, when you looked at the schedule of activities for ABCT, did you?
I got very lucky that the timing that you had laid out synced with what I could get away with. So those Monday, Tuesdays, if I'm attending, I couldn't leave the campus, especially, I'm New York based and the program was in Hartford. So I was able to block out those Monday, Tuesdays, but participating in the program is not just in big time commitment, it's a very specific time commitment. And Mary will give you dates of the roundtables, everything's laid out up front. In the next 12 weeks, here's where you need to be when, and you have to be there then. There's no flexibility. The only flexibility we had is with our small group, when is that TCon going to be? And again, people were flexible enough to let me do it Tuesday mornings. I don't have time. If it had to be Tuesday afternoon, it didn't work. I'm in clinic. Thursday morning, I'm in clinic. So we were flexible about where we spent those 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours with our teams on this weekly teleconference, webinar, I should say, because we presented our slides. We had to get the homework in by Sunday night to prep for Tuesday. So again, I work on Fridays, but I would able on the weekends to get my PowerPoint together each week, sometimes not till Monday night for the Tuesday presentation. The easier part is the web, when we could do it virtually, I was able to do it out of my office. But when I had to be present for the roundtables, for the 6 full days of boot camp, and for some of our meetings when we did our practice pitch and pitch day, that was not easy to shoehorn into a full schedule. And no, Mary, to answer your question, I can't not do everything else I'm getting paid to do. Right? I'm a salaried academic. I have a clinical responsibility. I have an administrative responsibility. I have a research responsibility. I could be a little flexible with my research time. And what I started doing is Wednesdays research day, Mondays administrative day, Tuesdays and Thursdays are my clinical days, and Fridays B2D2 day. And I gotta say that it's forced me to be more efficient, that I'm a little more efficient now with my clinical responsibilities, my research responsibilities, and my administrative responsibilities, because otherwise I don't get B2D2 time. It's clearly the last thing that I get to do, meaning it's a privilege to spend time on B2D2, which I can't do unless I've taken care of everything else. So it's been, I haven't been able to give anything up, but I have compartmentalized everything else, and I have gotten more efficient at managing everything else. And I'm 61. I've been doing this for 35 years, as a physician. And it's interesting how I got more efficient at doing what I've always been doing because of my passion and intensity and desire to additionally work on B2D2.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's something that is unimaginable when you are extremely busy already, that there actually is another way to do things and that more could be done. Let me switch. We've got a question from one of the attendees, which is, how far along is your technology when you applied? Did you have patents issued? Were provisionals submitted? Where were you when you applied?
So when I started the company, and it was in the summer, I had this idea, provisional patent, and I had gone to my tech office. So Mary appropriately requires anybody who is an academic to have already cleared with their technology transfer office that A, they're going to file on your behalf, and B, that they are going to support you in participating in the program. Where I was is I have a medical device. I run a concussion clinic, and I came up with an idea for a cold glove. You stick your hand in the glove and it cools your hand to 0 degrees for 2 minutes while measuring your blood pressure and heart rate. And if you've had a concussion that puts you at risk for ongoing symptoms, your heart rate and blood pressure response is blunted. It also turns out that if you have that impaired autonomic function, so it's your autonomic nervous system that's altered as a result of the concussion, and that test is the biomarker for that impairment, we can get you better faster if you play an app that we developed that you download to your iPhone, which is a graded exercise app, and it gets you going faster by retraining your autonomic nervous system. So the latter is an app which is copyrighted, but the former is a device that needs a patent. So I had discussed it with Cornell. They were willing to file a provisional patent, but when I applied for ABCT, I did not have the provisional patent, but I did have, I could tell Mary that my institution, Cornell, was working with me actively to file a provisional patent. What happened during the program was fascinating. I am fighting with my institution, who was not as user-friendly as I would have hoped they could have been. I was somewhat naive, and they were somewhat naive. But over the course of months, I'm duking it out. What are the price and terms by which I'm going to develop a patent? Mary introduces me to somebody who I talked to while I'm up to my ears in this. And he said to me, Barry, this is simple. Tell your technology transfer office, this isn't your request. This is your investor's request, right? Then they're not duking it out with me. I'm just the messenger. If you want me to raise money to be able to get our product, and this is the key, it's our product, it's Cornell's IP and my company. If we're both going to succeed, the terms of engagement, which is the licensing and options agreement, have to be one that is favorable for investors. And when I took myself out of the loop, and it wasn't me fighting with them anymore, it was me representing potential investors and telling them, hey, I got an investor, I got an angel who doesn't like the terms that you're offering me. It was a game changer. So just having that one conversation at the key time enabled me to get a more favorable options and licensing agreement with Cornell. Also, I used the timeline. I said, look, I have pitch day. I want to finalize my term and option sheet so that when investors are coming to pitch day, Mary's bringing people into the audience, I want to be able to say to them, I have a patent. So over the course of those 3 months, it dragged out a little bit longer than pitch day, but now I do have filed a provisional patent for both. There's another device I have. They copyrighted my app, and I now have my license and options terms that are an essential starting point for me to start now developing term sheets for the potential investors. We decided to go with a Series A. We now are valuing, you're looking for $2 million, and then warrants 2 years down the road for another $3 million. And we came up with valuations for the company and are going to issue stock. And we are ready to go. But when I came to the table, I had the IP request, but not the patent filed, which took me another 3 to 6 months.
Super helpful. Thank you, Barry. We have another question, which again is about where you were when you started and now. Can you share a little bit about your business structure? Did you already have a company when you started the program? And how many part-time and full-time employees do you currently have, and what kind of roles are they filling? And I know you've also talked about consultants that you've got. How is that? How is it structured?
So we started with 3 musketeers: me, my son Jeffrey, and a partner in Australia named Tony. And we are the 3. We are B2D2. None of us get salary. All of us have equity. Then we said, okay, what do we need next? I need a deal lawyer, so I found somebody. I need a money guy, so I found somebody. I need some consultants, and I need some contractors. So piece by piece, I brought people on. Now, I can't afford a CFO or a CEO. I have no full-time employees. I have nobody who I'm paying a salary. Nobody works for B2D2. Once you start hiring people and paying them, it's a whole different game. You have 1 employee, you have to get the structure for HR, and it's a lot to it. So you don't want to start hiring people until you've got enough money and enough infrastructure to pay them and to support them. So I went the other route, which is part-time. I hired an IP lawyer to help me. I hired a marketing consultant to help me, paid them time limited just for the projects. I pay my lawyer by the month to help me with each of the deals. I retained a consultant and an advisor, and what you call these people and how you pay them and to what extent they're engaged, I think is going to be dynamic, and you have to be flexible. The only advantage you have as a little company is that you can pivot quickly, and you can be responsive to the immediate needs of the market, the product, and your strategy. But I got very lucky. I got to this point where I needed to raise money and I needed to come up with a more formal marketing strategy. I found a woman who is a serial entrepreneur who is a CFO and is willing to be a part-time CFO for me for equity. So it's this balance. I could have given my lawyer equity, but I don't want to give it away, so I've been paying him. The CFO, the part-time CFO, didn't want money. She wanted a piece of the company, and she's good enough that I'll give her a little piece for an ongoing effort to help us with our go-to-market strategy. However, she didn't want to do the market analysis, so I hired somebody just last week who is a business analyst who I'm paying by the hour to do the grunt work, to collect the data, to feed her, to help her put this financial plan in together. So I was lucky. I have a friend from medical school who started a device company. He's been a consultant. I have a friend from college who is a CEO of a pharmaceutical company. He's helped me, and I have a friend from residency who runs a VC company. So all 3 are MDs, none of them practice. They're all in this space, and they were really helpful. How does one go at this? If you're a doctor, you think about this differently, and I trust them, and that's the other key. You've got to find people that you absolutely trust, who you know are giving you the right advice, and I was lucky enough to find them serially. So yes, I've been piecemeal putting together a team. There's been 3 principals. We have engaged a couple of consultants, and I think it's just putting together the team ad hoc is the best I can do in the first 2 years while I'm trying to manufacture a device, get FDA approval, and collect data. I'll have no revenue for 2 years. So trying to jumpstart a company and going to investors and saying, I need you to invest in me and my idea, you better have a pretty good team for them to talk to and have thought about most of the problems and look credible, even though you haven't hired anybody full time. You need an integrated team where you've got every base covered.
Thank you, Barry. That's very helpful, I think, for a lot of people. One of the questions is, where is this bridge going to? Am I getting on a bridge to nowhere? And I think what you lay out so clearly is that this is something that gets built very carefully, piece by piece. And it takes a while, a long while, both to figure out what those pieces are and to start putting them in place. But all of them lead to this expanded credibility for the business effort of commercializing the innovation. So thank you so much again for being so clear and concrete about the tasks that you have undertaken in a very short period of time to build your company, while at the same time having the administrative, clinical, research responsibilities at Weill Cornell.
And I want to make one more point on that, Mary, which is I engaged a couple of people that I disengaged. So you're not going to get it all right. And you're going to go down some dead ends, and that's okay. It's a learning curve, but you don't want to commit to a dead end in perpetuity. So I think it's trying people on for size. Do they provide value added? Do they have the right personality? Do they have the right work of, you know, there are a lot of brilliant people. If I can't get them to call me back, they're not helpful, right? So do they have the a workflow that syncs with mine? I can't be available all the time. I try to respond to email within an hour. So I think it's there are some dead ends, and you know that's the cost of doing business. But the more people you talk to, the more likely you are to find the ones that you're going to be able to sync with.
Well, I think it's a really important point that you make, and part of this is that it's a activity that you're learning by doing as well. It's hard to master a theory about this. It's a very personal, individual, and undertaking to create a business. And when you're doing this for the first time, or as often if you do it again, which we see a quarter of the people who come into this program doing, you realize that there are certain things that really work for you, and you come to realize that as you actually do the work. So the activity is this combination of figuring out what you need and you personally need to make it work, and then practicing that with people to refine your understanding of it. So I think this is an important aspect of being an entrepreneur, is the actual doing of it and the learning from the doing. And I'm not sure there's any way around that. And that's also what makes it pretty exciting. Personally, I think, is the opportunity to really start figuring out what makes all of this hum and start putting that in place. But as Barry shares, you know, this isn't something that everyone does flawlessly. No one does flawlessly. And everybody understands that there are going to be changes in the plan, in the people. And the question is, it's going to be up to you to keep moving this forward. It's something that is very important to us as we interview people, is really having an understanding that you want to do this. Because if you want to do this, you'll figure it out, no matter what the nuances are of what it means to figure it out and what it will look like.
I think it's an important point there, Mary, which is the role of the ego. Not to get philosophic, you have to have strong ego function to do this. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to refuse to fail. However, you have to be in some ways humble. I'm humbled every day by how naive I am and how appreciative I am of my smart friends and consultants who not only educate me, but are willing to look the other way regarding my naivete. So it's this balance between the vision and the voice and the heart and the soul of the company, and you have to instill confidence in the people around you. However, you've got to be deferential to them because they know stuff you don't, and you've got to be humble to acknowledge, A, you don't know it, and B, you're often wrong, naive, and misdirected. So it's this interesting balance that I've never been as inadequate as I am inadequately prepared for a job as I was for this one.
Yeah, I think it's a special thing that you're sharing here about the personal journey of starting a venture, and like you say, it is sort of a philosophical, reflective aspect of this. But you really do get an extraordinary opportunity to have insight into yourself, because so much is going to be challenged, so much is going to push you, that you really do get an extraordinarily quick opportunity to, learn about what it is that you can do well, what things you need help with, and really some other people's, you really kind of get to the heart of why you're doing this with a lot of the people you're going to work with too. You have to really want this life to do it, and nobody wants it the same way. And part of what we try and do in the program is accommodate that evolving vision you have of both your role and what your company's role is, with honest feedback that doesn't come with strings attached. It's one of the reasons why the program is run without an equity interest in the company and without any charge. We want people to really have the freedom to try and figure out how this is going to work for them. And it's not a cookie cutter answer, and we try and set this up so that you can sort many of these important issues out with a group of people who are motivated to see you succeed. So it's a big undertaking. It has some special insights that you gain from it that we don't talk about, but I think, as Barry's saying, they're very much there as part of this process that you go through. Do we have we have another question, which is an interesting one, which is, how, Barry, would you say you grew as an entrepreneur from the beginning of the program to the end of the program?
I would say I did not know I was an entrepreneur. And some of this is innate and some of it's learned. And not to get too philosophic again, I did not have a business chip in my head. I never have. But I am entrepreneurial. And I didn't realize as a scientist how entrepreneurial I was. Because, for 30 years I ran a research lab, and it was the same kind of thing. There's a lot of things you can do in science. What do you have to do? And then once you figure that out, who is the team I need to assemble? Who are the people I have to partner with, and how am I going to pay for it? So all those skills that I had honed for 30 years, I did not realize were going to serve me well in starting a company. It's very different, that there's a corporate deliverable. In both cases, the currency is US dollars. But in science, my deliverable are research papers and discoveries that will ultimately get me more grant money, US dollars, to do more of it. Here it's different in the sense that I got to sell more gloves and more apps in order to expand my vision and my company. But it's getting some of these, it's formalizing how to express those entrepreneurial skills and traits on a trajectory for me personally as the founder and for me as the company. And I had no idea what that role would be. And I think part of that 3-month experience is maturing by looking at the people around me who had done it before, by getting introduced to people that were good at it and succeeded at it, having those positive role models and trying to emulate them, and trying to individualize it. Obviously, I'm coming at it very differently. And I know what I am and I know what I'm not, and I have to be comfortable with both. And I think it's either it's in your blood or it's not. And if it is, it's fun, because you get to harness it, but you've got to manage it, you've got to educate it, and you've got to formalize it. And that is, I'm sure, going to be a lifelong process. And for me to tell you now, 1 year into this, 3 months out of the program, that I've mastered it would be a fallacy. This is a work in progress, but I am connecting with parts of me that were latent and are starting to mature.
Well, thank you again, Barry, for your really incredible ability to share how this program has worked for you, with a significant amount of concrete explanation of how it works and how things have changed and what you've put together and how you make it work for yourself. I very much appreciate your joining again today and sharing this. I just want to wrap up now. If we have any more questions, shoot them along. But we have 2 more info sessions. They are both in Connecticut at noon today in Stamford, and Tuesday morning and the New Haven Health Hub. You can find the RSVP with the times, locations on the abc.co website. And if you have other questions that come to you after this webinar and you would like to discuss them, you can, of course, contact me directly at mary@designtechnologiesllc.com. You'll see that on the website, and you'll be there. That contact information is also, we'll write it into this this chat box here, so you can see you can clip out and send emails to ask questions about that. The deadline for applications for the ELab program is 2 weeks from Monday. The deadline for the ABCT program is 2 weeks from Tuesday. We strongly recommend that you have any questions, you get us in touch with us. The team is here to help you write a strong application, and we are available, so don't worry about contacting us multiple times. We'll glad to help you out to make a decision to apply, to answer questions, or put you in touch with other alums who can help you think through this important decision. We wish you well with your application. Thank you very much again, Barry, for joining us and sharing this with us, your experience.
What you've done for me is enormous. You and your program have just been so helpful, so supportive, and really first class. The way it's run, I couldn't be more impressed, and it's my pleasure to help give back a little bit for everything you've done for me.
Well, thank you so much, Barry. Okay, we'll be in touch, and everybody have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay.
Good luck, everybody.
Bye-bye now.